Hi, everybody. It's Uncle Lee. Time for current events commentary. Let's roll. All right, so today, being 11/14/2019, we had a school shooting today down in California. Before I get into the bits and pieces, I want to offer my condolences to the families and people involved, to everybody who was down there. I wish you the very best, and I hope that you can heal from this as fast as possible. That being said, it's a load of garbage. It's a load of crap that this has to happen, and this does happen, that it'll continue to happen, because obviously humanity has good and evil, and within it, it has a lot of issues and problems that could be solved and can be solved. Unfortunately, not so easily and not so immediately. We've had problems like this in one form or another since the beginning of time. We've had good and evil within us since the beginning of time, and we've been willing to hurt and kill each other since the beginning of time. It's one of those things that, knowing history, you know it's going to happen, and you know it's going to continue to happen until humanity becomes a lot better than it has been and it currently is. The knee-jerk reaction that we've seen from a lot of different people is that we should get rid of guns, which is what a lot of the gun grabbers and gun control activists are pushing for. Considering how much violence happens in a weekend in Chicago and how many gun control laws and regulations there are in California that, quote-unquote, can prevent these things and didn't, I think that's the absolute wrong way to go. Demanding that the government save us from ourselves obviously doesn't work, because no government is pure and altruistic and decent and can protect anybody. As we saw in Parkland, sometimes the government runs away from the protection they need to offer and deliver than actually rushing into the fight. So what is the solution? And I've offered this solution on a number of different occasions when crap like this happens, and unfortunately most of the reaction I get is either vile and snide remarks, or I get laughed at, or abusive and derogatory comments and language. And my solution is this: every single person in America who is decent, worthwhile, and gives a damn should be armed. Not only should they be armed, but they should be trained, they should know how to use their weapon, and they should be willing to use it when the situation presents itself. Again, I get a lot of derision off of this, and understandably so. If you go back to the Eric Holder video from, I think, the mid-90s, when he's talking about how we need to condition people as a society to look at guns the same way that at the time they looked at cigarettes, and we still look at cigarettes, as a horrible thing that needs to be tamped down and kind of eliminated from society, you can understand why this current environment exists, where we fear guns more than we fear the people who want to wield them in anger or rage or in an act of violence that shouldn't occur and should never happen. I think that a well-trained and armed populace has more than enough capabilities to repel villainy of this sort. To further the argument, I offer this: the gun control issues, or the gun control regulations that most people want, which is universal background checks, limits on magazine sizes, preventing people from gifting their guns to their siblings or their family members. All three of those things obviously wouldn't have helped here. He was underage. He had a .45, which typically doesn't hold more than 7 rounds at a time, sometimes 9, but for the most part 7. And he was below age, so they couldn't have gifted it to him. He's not supposed to have a gun. Kid had supposedly mental issues and problems socializing, which is becoming a very prevalent thing these days. Bullying in schools has not gotten better, it's gotten worse. And as some of the studies that I've seen lately have shown, what was it, 89% of students or young people find life to be hopeless, experience hopelessness. If that's the case, then maybe there's a societal problem that needs to be addressed rather than a gun problem. It's a human issue. It's not a gun issue. I've owned guns. They've never gotten up and walked around the house, and they've never shot anybody in anger or hate. They're inanimate objects. Guns are an inanimate object. They're a tool, just like your knife, just like your car. Cars can be used to kill people. Knives can be used to kill people. And in countries that have gun control, what ends up happening? We've seen more than enough examples in the last few years. China, England, Australia, a lot of these countries that leftists and gun grabbers and gun control activists hold up as shining examples of how gun control can help. They have large amounts of knife crime. The mayor of London wants to institute knife control, wants you to turn in your knives. I mean, if you ban guns and then problems don't go away in terms of stabbings and killings, and you go to the next tool that's being used, guess what? It's not a tool problem. It's not an object problem. It's a human problem. And if you don't address how to deal with that human problem, things aren't going to get any better. They're going to get worse. And until you actually address the problems, things aren't going to get better. And especially in our society right now, where so many kids and so many people in general are hooked on psychotropic medications and antidepressants and just pills in general, is it any wonder why when reality starts crashing in on the delusions these pills create, is it any wonder why this is happening? I mean, it's a sad reality, and we can fix it. You know, we don't need to get kids hooked on pills and then have reality come crashing down. We need to actually teach these kids how to deal with reality, how to stand up against the bullies, so that way when they get older, or as they get older, they don't feel so hopeless in life that they end up wanting to do horrible things to their fellow man out of spite and out of rage. It's not healthy as a society. It's not going to lead to good things. And the last thing we need to give politicians and bureaucrats and gun grabbers is more ammunition to go after our rights and our freedoms just because a few of the monsters decide to let loose and do some horrible things. As far as it goes, my condolences to the families and the people down there in California who are dealing with this tragedy. I hope the best for you, and I hope the best for all down there, but don't have a knee-jerk reaction that, seems like a good idea, but in the end, historically speaking, it's a horrible idea. Always leads to bad, bad, bad consequences. Horrible end results that make what that tragedy is seem like a drop in the bucket compared to what's going to come. Because as history has shown, the moment the government starts taking away guns, they start taking away freedoms. And when they start taking away freedoms, they put us, the people, under the boot. And that's the whole reason for the Second Amendment. To give the people a way to fight back. Think about the consequences of what you want to institute so we don't end up in a horrible nightmare where the government and the criminals are the only ones with the guns, while we, the people, are the ones getting bent over and screwed. Thank you very much, folks. This is Uncle Lee. Some current events commentary. Peace.